So I think the big news of the day is the roads being shut down at some point for the Bills practice.
Yeah.
So I don't know what, do you have any idea what they are?
5:30. I saw on the
Well,
219.
just be aware if you're leaving campus this afternoon or early evening, it'll be treated as if it's a Bills game because they have an open practice and I believe it's sold out. So you'll see some traffic out there. So it'll prep us for the season. I really don't have much in line of announcements. So I did get a great question just before we started. Where are we with hiring a new fitness instructor? And the unfortunate news is we're back at ground zero. We didn't get many resumes, but we got a few really good ones. And our HR director called every one of them, and they all decided that they wanted to stay part-time. The one person we really wanted just didn't call back. So we're going to try again and then probably repost it in all of our venues wherever we post our open jobs, and hopefully we get a replacement for Becky soon. So I apologize for that. I know it's been a while and you're watching videos and it's not the same, and Becky had great energy and was just really special, and we're doing our best to fill that spot. So please be patient. Yes, Janice.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for Monday's party. I should say thank Fox Run. It was very nice for the residents.
Well, I appreciate that, but I should be thanking all of you for coming to the town planning board meeting. I went back and listened to the replay, which you can do. You can go on their website, which there's a link in the newsletter. And it's really pretty special hearing all of it, and you get energized all over again. I had goosebumps again, so it was really nicely done, and we couldn't have done it without everyone that participated, so thank you for that. And the next step for that is this Wednesday, the full town board meeting will be on Wednesday at 7 o'clock, and I believe we're told if the planning board approves it, it's a slam dunk, so we really don't have to make a big deal out of this Wednesday, but I will still be there. If anyone wants to join and see a board meeting, it should be very brief, but we also have a concert that day, so it'll be tough. But I'll be there, and I'm sure our board president, Ron Witt, will be there.
Good.
Great segue to put Ron on the spot. But that's our next step, and I'll keep you all posted because it feels like we're moving in the right direction. So that's it for me. Any questions? Okay, Melissa has some announcements.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I was Nancy Crowley every Thursday. Remember Nancy? Nancy used to work, she was our resident liaison before she retired. Every Thursday she comes to Fox Run, and she has a little book club where she reads for about an hour. And she likes to choose books that represent Buffalo and the surrounding areas. So everyone is invited to book club every Thursday at 10 a.m. up in the Creative Arts Room. No, in the card room, sorry. Card room, 10 a.m. on Thursdays. Please come and join us. Also, the Fox Run Farmers Market, the fall market, will be here on Thursday, September 12th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Nettie has taken over with the farmers market. She has gone to the East Aurora Farmers Market and the Hamburg Farmers Market to secure some new vendors for Fox Run. So there's going to be produce and coffee, baked goods, honey, maple syrup, kettle corn, a barbecue food truck, and we are going to advertise. It's going to be open to the public, but we hope to see all of you on Thursday, September 12th. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes, Barb?
Will that be the mum sale, or will the mum sale be later?
Will that be the mum sale, or will the mum sale be later? The mum sale will be later, okay? That Michelle takes care of, and she likes to do it a specific way. So we'll wait, that will be later. But he may have some mums, because I do believe Bill Lindstrom is coming as well, okay? And with that, I'm going to introduce our community.
One more thing.
One more thing.
Thank everyone. Mary did get a bunch of volunteers for the health center. I made an announcement.
Okay.
We need some people to come over.
The last coffee hour, we had made an announcement that we needed some volunteers to go over to the health center. And Mary did get quite a few volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering to go over to the health center, to just either bring someone over for a church service or just sit with someone, take them outside for a ride, please come and see Mary Wellington, and she will make sure that we get you hooked up with the right person, okay? Okay. With that, I'm going to introduce our community member, Bev Halligan, who's going to introduce our speaker. Bev?
Thank you. Thank you. Very excited about our speaker this morning. Dan and myself and friend went to hear her in her group, River Line. Got it right. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the New York City High Line, and Buffalo's working on a River Line, which would be similar, but at grade level, not up in the air. I do have some brochures with the map in them. If you'd like one while the presentation is going on, raise your hand, excuse me, and I'll pass them out to you. Molly is the speaker and did a great job at the presentation that we heard. She also worked, wonderful, interesting resume, but she went to London and worked on the Thames River, and her interest came back to Buffalo, and she's working now with Riverline, which is part of the Western New York Land Conservancy. I hope many of you donate to that. They're very critical in saving land in Western New York. Excuse me, my sinuses are having fun. Without further ado, I'd like to give Molly as much time as possible. Molly? And if you'd like one, please bring it forward, raise your hand.
Thank you, Bev, and thank you all for having me come speak to you today. Like Bev said, my name is Molly, and I work for the Western New York Land Conservancy, and I work on a project called the River Line. The River Line is a unique project for the Land Conservancy. I don't know how familiar you are with the Land Conservancy, but it's been around since 1991, and their main mission is to conserve land in Western New York. They actually have properties in, I believe it's 8 counties in Western New York, almost 100 properties, totaling about almost 8,000 acres. So that's a lot of land that's being preserved. That means no development will happen on that land. So it just kind of creates large areas of habitat for animals, for lots of different trees, shrubs, plants to grow, sort of help, help battle climate change and keep nice green areas where people can go visit. So that's what the Land Conservancy does. Most of the properties and the acreage that they own are places like forests, wetlands. They have a farmland protection program, so these are places that are far away from cities. But the River Line, that's why the River Line is a unique project, because the River Line is within the city of Buffalo. And this is obviously the map of the future River Line. What the River Line is, I'm going to try to use, here we go. The River Line is going to take an old unused railroad corridor and turn it into a nature trail. That rail line, it was the old DL&W rail line, the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western. It ran out of Buffalo, ran all the way to New York City. It moved freight as well as passengers. But like many railroads, eventually when like big interstate highways started being built, the rail lines were less used. And so this rail line was discontinued in the early 1960s, and by 1965, all of the infrastructure, so all the railroad ties and the rails were removed from this corridor. So since then, since 65, this strip of land right here, which is, this green strip of land right here, has just been sitting vacant. It's owned by the NFTA, Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority, but it's been unused and it's not accessible to the public. So it's this really nice strip of green that goes right through 3 different neighborhoods in the city of Buffalo. So I'll get you a little oriented. This road right here above the green is South Park Avenue. So it runs roughly parallel to South Park, coming from downtown. So this is downtown over here. So Lake Erie would be like over here. This is the Buffalo River that spills out into Lake Erie. And so these buildings right here are the Buffalo Creek Seneca Casino. And so this is sort of the back side of the casino. And that's where the trail would begin. So, and it runs through these 3 neighborhoods. This is the Perry neighborhood here. The middle part is the Old First Ward. And over here is the Valley neighborhood. And the whole thing will be about 1.5 miles. And it will end at this point here at the Buffalo River. On the maps that we're passing out, on the front side is this image here, the map. And then on the back side of the handout are what we call renderings, or they're basically drawings of pictures of what different parts of the trail will look like. And one of the drawings on the back there is something called the half bridge. And that's this here. So this used to be a full bridge going over the river, and it was a drawbridge. I'm not sure what happened, but right now there's only half of it there. And so it sticks halfway out into the river. And it's actually really cool. The public, you can't go out onto it. But that's eventually going to be the one end of the river line. And it'll be a really cool end point of the trail, because you're going to be like standing right over the river, and you'll just be able to look up and down the river. You'll be able to see a lot of the old grain elevators. What you'll be looking at directly across the river is the Tesla plant, which is maybe not the most scenic view, but there you go. But that just kind of gets you oriented of where this thing is. So these neighborhoods here are, well, before Buffalo became an industrial hub, this whole area, and really most of the area that covers the city of Buffalo, was home to lots of prosperous indigenous communities for actually centuries. The river, just was, and the river and the lake were just kind of really good locations to kind of, set up communities that, again, particularly into, the late 1700s, early 1800s, indigenous communities in these areas were really prosperous. They had lumber mills, they traded, they grew crops and traded them. And then, of course, like many other places in this country, when the industrial stuff really started to take off, and immigrants from Europe mostly, really started coming to the country, the indigenous tribes kind of got squeezed out. The Seneca Nation was left with about 9 acres, and that's where the casino sits. But in any case, the immigrants started coming in. My grandfather was from southern Italy, and he came I think he was a teenager. I think it was like the early 1900s. He eventually got a job at the steel plant. My dad worked at the steel plant, but industry and shipping and industry really started taking off in Buffalo, and these neighborhoods were really at the center of a lot of that. So, they're still really tight-knit, kind of working class neighborhoods, and some families have been living in them for generations. So there's some people in the neighborhoods that, maybe they were younger back in the 60s, but they remember when the train line was actually still running. And, some of the railroad corridor goes directly through some of these neighborhoods. I don't know if you can see here, but these are all houses. These are all people's houses on either side, particularly in the center here. This is the First Ward. And some people remember when those trains would run right past their house, and it was like it was running through their living room. But anyway, so that gives you a flavor of what these neighborhoods are like. So my job at the Riverline is a community outreach coordinator, and public engagement and outreach into the people who live around these areas is key, because these neighborhoods haven't changed in a long, long time, and here comes this project, which is kind of a big change. We think it's a good change. We'd rather see that than have this area be more developed. But we've worked a lot with the communities to hear from them, like, is this something they want? What kinds of things would they like the trail to be? Do they want it to be more modern, or do they want it to be more focused on nature? And so a lot of work was done with the neighborhoods and the people to hear what they wanted. What came out of a lot of that community work is this document that's called an equitable development framework, because so often when you have these new types of projects, they just come in and do them, and then of course a lot of people get displaced because the area is raised up in value, the property values go up and that kind of thing, and then the people who've been living there can't afford to live there anymore, and we're trying to prevent that from happening. So our equitable development framework focuses on 6 areas. And we want to make sure that everything we do is sort of, all the benefits are sort of put directly back into the community. And so that just kind of gives you a frame. So this is like our guiding star. We're always keeping this in the front of mind whatever we do. Let me just get the clicker right here. So, like I said, my role is around community engagement. There's a lot of words on this slide, but basically our goals are to, you know, make sure that people who live around the Riverline are going to have, you know, a meaningful contribution to what the thing ends up looking like. And so we do lots of different types of things where people can come and participate, be directly involved with the planning of it, and also just kind of participate in fun events that we run too. You know, the 3 neighborhoods, Perry, the Old First Ward, the Valley, historically they stayed pretty separate from one another. You know, people in the Valley never went into the ward, and people in the ward never went over to the Valley, and then Perry was over here, where the Commodore Perry homes are, and those folks were told, don't go on the other side of South Park, and people in the ward were told, don't go on that side of South Park, you know, so that's, I mean, that stuff happens. But what we're trying to do is kind of make the communities a little more connected, because there's so many things that we all have in common no matter where we live, right? So anyway, and then provide an array of programming just means we run lots of different kinds of events that people can come and have fun at and learn about what we're trying to do. So those are our goals. So I'm just going to go through some of the programs that we run as part of the Riverline, getting people involved. We have a really cool community arts program that we started last year. We got some funding from Mitch Nowakowski's office. He's a Buffalo Common Council member. And there's General Mills has a hometown fund that they give money to community projects. We got funding from them. Last year what we did was we formed a committee, because again, we didn't want to be calling all the shots and saying what should be done. So we formed a group of local people, artists and residents. We had a call for proposals. It's for people who want to do a project, an arts project. There were 3 finalists that were selected. And then we held a public display event where the 3 finalists came and set up displays of their ideas, and the public could interact with them and rank their choices. So this was the finalist event last year. And, you know, lots of people came out and heard, you know, what each group, you know, was going to try to do. And then this is someone, we had a little ballot box there. You could rank your preferences and choose the one you wanted. And based on what the community's votes were, let me go back a second. This group here, there's a place called Buffalo Center for Arts and Technology, BCAT. And they have a youth mural club. And these kids were fantastic the way they interacted with the public that day, and they were chosen to do the project. And the project that they did was a mural. So also, if you go back to the maps, and I said that on the back side there were pictures of different locations, what it could look like, this is the one end. There's a low warehouse building here on a street called Moore Street. And the same family has owned that building since the 1970s, and they really love the Riverline. So they were like, yeah, you can put a mural on our building. So that's what the building looked like before. And then BCAT, the Youth Mural Club at BCAT was chosen to do the project, and this is them, you know, on that very first day mixing up the paints, and then, you know, they just made the design. and it represents some of the industrial history and sense of community, and so they designed the mural and then, went at it with the painting, and we ended up having a big celebration event when it was done. So that was a way to involve community people and bring some public art, to beautify, a section that's right next to the river line. And we're doing the same thing again. This time we asked people to do three-dimensional proposals, like, whether it's sculpture or, something a little different than a mural. And we just selected the artist. She's a Buffalo artist, and she's gonna work with groups of people that are gonna make these lanterns with storytelling woven into the project, and then we're going to have this lantern lighting ceremony in the fall. So the community arts program has been a really fun way to get people to learn about the history of the area and express themselves through art. So that's one program that we do. And then we do these series of community fun days, and that's just open to the general public, and we usually have different themes of the days. So we usually, or we've been doing something on the weeks before and after Earth Day, which is like the middle of April usually. And so sometimes we do cleanup events. And this group here, you can see how many bags of trash they collected. We work with corporate groups sometimes, so groups of employees who work at the same company will come out and do events with us. So half of this group is from Tesla and the other half is from the casino, and they're both companies that are local to the river line, and they had a blast. It doesn't sound so glamorous going around and picking up trash, but once you start doing it, you would be surprised at how fun and satisfying it is. People really get into it. And then another thing that we did was we did a tree planting. We did a few different tree planting events at different areas. And then, this spring we had a tree maintenance event where they, took the fencing off, weeded, put mulch down, put the fences back on, and again, it's just a fun way to get people out and appreciate nature and trying to, bring the river line to fruition so that everybody can use it and enjoy the nature. We had a winter fun day, and actually there had been snow, and then like the 2 days leading up to the winter fun day, the snow all went away. But, it was still cold enough to enjoy, and this is the Buffalo Curling Club right here. This is, we invited the Buffalo Curling Club, and, they set up a little, mini curling on the parking lot there. We had a fire. We had an artist who works for the Buffalo Public Schools come and do an art activity, and the kids were really loving that. But, we did it because we wanted to show that the river line can be a place that you could enjoy all year, not just in the warmer months. So we did the Winter Fun Day. This past May, we did a community bike day because May is National Bike Month. And there's a couple of really cool organizations in Buffalo that promote riding bikes and making better trails on the road to be able to ride your bikes in the city. And the big one is Go Bike. And they set up this little repair shop, and people brought their bikes to, if they needed a tire changed or their brakes looked at or whatever. That was cool. And then this woman, her name is Connie, and she runs her own business called Connie's Edu Kitchen instead of education. And she has like an industrial kitchen, and groups of people come in and teaches them how to make healthy meals and stuff. And she has this bike here. It's a stationary bike. I don't know if you can see this, but right there above the big wheel is a blender. And so when you pedal the bike, it makes the blender go and you can make smoothies. So it's Connie's smoothie bike. And people were loving that. That was really fun. So, and then this is another artist who works in the Buffalo Public Schools, and she had kids making streamers for their handlebars. And this guy here is from the Police Athletic League, and I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they do tons of programming for kids in Buffalo. And they brought free bike helmets. They were giving away bike helmets. So anyways, you know, this is another type of community day that we had, just to promote having fun outdoors, you know, doing healthy fun things. And so yeah, we did that. Another program that we have, thanks to Don and Barbara Owens, who you know, make a donation for this program, is the Riverline Ambassadors. And the ambassadors are people who live in these neighborhoods that I told you about, that the trail's gonna go through. And they help us with absolutely everything. So, and the funding allows us to pay them for their time. So we ask for a minimum of 5 hours a month. These are most of the people, you know, have jobs. There's a couple people who are retired, but like everybody has their busy lives. There's things that they do. So this is not a huge commitment for people, but it's for people who do want to pitch in and help. So the ambassadors do everything from, you know, help us at the events that we do. We do a lot of tabling events, and so the ambassadors will tell folks about the Riverline, get them to sign up for our newsletter, things like that. They also go around their neighborhoods and publicize stuff. They go to their own meetings, community meetings, and make announcements and hang out flyers and things like that. So it allows us to increase our reach of, you know, telling people and inviting people to what we do. I have 5 ambassadors this year, and for the first time, all 3 of the neighborhoods are represented in the ambassador group, which is great, because it just allows people to meet each other as well. So yeah, that's the ambassador program. They're terrific. We love them. The other thing, if you go back to the equitable development framework and those 6 focus areas, one of the areas is economic opportunity. So we're trying to think of ways, how can we create opportunity for local people to, you know, just kind of increase, you know, their economic power and stability. And so one of the things that we did was develop a workforce development plan, which is when the Riverline is built, we're going to need help taking care of it. Has any of you been to the High Line in New York City? Okay, a couple people. The High Line in New York is also about 1.5 miles long, and it's terrific. It's on an old elevated railroad track, and if you walk down it, the landscaping is incredible. You know, there's a lot of native plants and like grasses and native flowers and things like that. And they make it look really easy, like, oh yeah, you know, that's just some grass growing over there. But it takes so much work to landscape that and keep it, you know, looking wild and natural, but at the same time, not like growing over the sidewalk that you're walking down and stuff. There's a lot more that goes into it. And so we're going to need landscaping teams to help us take care of the Riverline. So we created it was a certified course in landscape maintenance technology. We're not ready to hire anybody yet, but we ran the course. There were 25 people that signed up for it. 24 of them out of 25 made it through the course, graduated. These are folks mostly who are like unemployed or underemployed, or maybe they're working 3 jobs, but they want to do some kind of career. They want a new career path. So this worked for a lot of folks. They did 30 hours of online instruction, and then they did 30 hours of an internship. And we got 7 sites to take on these students. So they were bigger sites like Olmsted Parks, and the Botanical Gardens took some. And then they were small owned businesses, you know, landscaping businesses. So, you know, students really got a good experience, and now they get the certification, they can go get employed in the field, and that's a good thing to create that kind of economic opportunity for people. So yeah, so that's another way that we kind of do community things. Right now, so going away from the direct community stuff, right now we're in the middle of something called the Riverline Study. And what that is, it's actually a lot of moving parts. But it's a series of tests and reviews and assessments that have to be done to satisfy the State Department of Education, not Department of Education, Department of Transportation, before any construction can begin. So any infrastructure project out there has to do this kind of thing. So they have to test the soil, to see if it's contaminated. They have to test the ground to see if it's strong enough to build structures on, like bridges over the roads and things. And they're also doing a social and community impact study. So the whole thing takes about 10 months to complete, and we're about halfway. And we have, public meetings, and there's all different requirements for how you interact with and inform the public. So we just had a round of 3 public meetings in July. Once this study is done, hopefully we get the green lights, like, yes, everything was, that was fine, that was fine, that was fine. We get the green lights from the Department of Transportation, and then we can begin construction, which is really exciting. Because this has been a long time coming. Those of you who know the High Line in New York, I think it was about 20 years between when it was an idea and when it actually started getting built. And like the High Line in New York, ours is probably going to get built in phases. So I think the High Line got built in 3 different sections, because part of that is just that it takes a while to get things built, but also these are expensive projects. It takes money, like everything else, to build, and so we're going to have to do a lot of fundraising and grant writing to get enough money to pay to build the river line. But we're gonna work at it for sure. So anyways, hopefully the plan is that we can start. We do have some money secured, and we can start construction in 2025. That's the goal. And this is the area that is going to be the first that's constructed, and we're calling it the Dell Refuge. That's the middle section of the trail. The reason it's called the Dell is because the people who grew up in the neighborhoods, the local neighborhoods, just refer to that strip of land as the Dell, short for Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western. They just go, oh yeah, go up on the Dell, and even though it was fenced off and you're technically not supposed to be there, kids would sled down it in the winter. It's actually what they call a berm. It's not right directly on the street. It's on a hill that kind of goes, on the line. It was the rail line, about 30 feet off the ground this hill is. And so it's just sort of this, rise of land that goes right through the neighborhoods, and, kids grew up calling it the Dell. So we're calling this middle section the Dell Refuge. And you can see, if you've been on the High Line, that's right in the middle of Manhattan in New York City. So the big, tall skyscrapers are right there. You're in New York, even though there's this beautiful trail with lots of natural plants and stuff. Ours is going to be a little more wild and natural looking because we're not in New York City. We're in a neighborhood of Buffalo, and the berm is a bit wider, so it's gonna look very natural, particularly in that middle section. And so it'll just allow everybody to go up there, families and people of all ages and abilities and things like that. So that's the Dell, and we got funding from both the federal government and the state of New York to do the study that we're doing now, and also to start building. And then we had a press release, and now he's Buffalo's congressional representative in Washington, but Tim Kennedy was a New York State senator when we got that money from him. So there he is, and then Brian Higgins. Kennedy just replaced Brian Higgins in Washington. So Brian Higgins has also been a longtime champion of the River Line. And then part of that Dell Refuge section of the trail that's going to be built is something called the Mackinac. We're calling it the Mackinac Street Play Garden. And what it's going to be is more like a natural version of a playground. So, instead of like the plastic swings and jungle gym and stuff, we're going to have natural materials, so like log piles and like a slide. So here would have been where the railroad was, up on the berm. you know, we're gonna have sort of natural slides, the kids can slide down the hill and things like that. So those are the things that are gonna be the first things that get built on the trail. So we're really excited. The community support the project, and you know, we think it'll add a lot to this particular area of Buffalo, which doesn't have a ton of green space. It's not like where Delaware Park is and some of the other bigger parks. It'll bring a nice natural space to the neighborhoods in this part of Buffalo, and yeah, we're looking forward to keep plugging away, and we'll get there eventually. So I think that is, you know, that's kind of it for my presentation, but I'm happy, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer questions. Yes?
Maybe I didn't hear it, but how long is it?
How long is the trail? It's 1.5 miles long. Yeah. So I wonder if I can go back to I'll just put the map back up on the screen, just for reference. Let's see, murals. Oh, and yeah, the equitable development, and then, okay, yeah. So the trail from, you know, from one end to the other is about 1.5 miles. Yes?
Does it begin or end at the D&W terminal?
Yeah, that's a great question. Does it begin or end at the DL&W train shed, which is also being redone right now? Unfortunately, this map doesn't go quite up to where that is. So again, this is downtown Buffalo right here, and the DL&W shed is right about there, right on the river. And that is being redone. And so there will be a connection eventually, because the idea is to redo the train shed and have the trains, the light rail trains, come out the first floor of the shed. The second floor of the shed, I think, is going to be more like community retail and, you know, maybe like places to eat and shop and things like that. But then right now, the Buffalo River is not accessible where the train shed is, but the idea is to put a path behind the train shed on the river, and then you'll be able to walk down the river, and they still sort of have to figure out, this is Michigan Avenue, if you know the Michigan Avenue bridge there, Michigan Street Bridge, I mean, and they have to figure out a way to get over Michigan Street, and then hook up to us. But you know, the other connection is that this is Ohio Street, and it's part of the Empire State Trail, which is a cycling trail that goes all the way across New York State. And we're going to have a direct line to that. Now, our trail is going to be mostly pedestrian only, because it's up on that berm, and it's not really suitable for bikes. But once you get over on this end, it's going to incorporate walking, and there'll be bike paths on the roads around the trail. So like here's Miami Street, Mackinac Street, and then down here you'll be able to bike and walk. So yeah, the idea is eventually that you'll be able to walk from the train shed and connect to the Riverline Trail. Yes?
Are you ever thinking of putting lighting along that trail?
That's an excellent question too. Are we thinking about putting lighting along the trail? And the answer is yes. So some of what we've heard from the neighbors, the residents nearby, you know, they have questions about security and safety and things like that. So yes, we are going to try to figure out lighting, but try to figure out lighting in a way that's not too harsh, that's kind of fits in with the natural setting, and doesn't disturb the animals all night. You know, they say you should try not to have super bright lights on your porch or on the outside of buildings, because it just kind of messes with animals' cycles, like birds and things. So we are going to figure out some kind of lighting. Maybe it'll be on the ground, like on the, you know, on the path itself. I'm not sure. I'm not an engineer. I'm actually learning a lot about how these things are constructed, but yes. Yes?
We hear so much about vandalism. How are you preparing for that to happen? Evidently it does happen.
Yes, that's a great question, vandalism. And that kind of goes back to the safety and security issue as well. I think some people feel like when you bring a project like this to a place that's mostly been abandoned, it's not like that nobody goes up there. People do go up there, even though you're not supposed to, but you know, the young people go up there and do what young people things, you know what I mean? And people like who grew, so, you know, when we've had some of these public meetings is a really good example. You know, this guy and his mom came, and he owns one of the houses that he grew up in now, and he's probably in like maybe his early 30s or something like that. And he came with his mom, and he's like, well, you know, if you guys bring this trail, you know, all these people from other neighborhoods are going to come in and just like mess, you know, vandalize and, you know, get up to no good and go up there and, you know, drink or whatever. And his mom was like, well, that's what you used to do up there, you know? And he was like, oh yeah, okay. But so I only say it because, but I say that because then there are studies that have looked at this as well. When you make improvements to an area and make it less abandoned looking, like you actually put a distinct path that people of all ages are going to be able to get up on there. So, you know, the moms with their kids in the strollers are going to be able to get up on there. You can't get up on there with a stroller right now. Or people in wheelchairs are going to be able to access the trail. So people of all ages are going to be up there. It's not just the kids sneaking up there to get away from, you know, mom and dad. When you improve an area and make it accessible to more people, the people who want to do the riffraff and the vandalism, they're going to move on and go elsewhere, where not as many eyes are going to be watching them. Do you know what I mean? So when we've done, like, for instance, that mural that the kids did last year, you know, that's an area that, you know, like at night, people leaving the casino and just kind of walking around and things like that, you know, some people might not feel so safe there. That mural hasn't been touched with one little mark of graffiti. And so I'm not saying it would never happen, but I think the feeling is that, you know, with the improvements that we want to make and the increase in foot traffic and people enjoying the space, it's going to cut down on things like vandalism. So, you're back, yeah.
Speaking of other neighborhoods, will there be parking anywhere in the plan that will let us drive down there and enjoy it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Will there be parking so people from other neighborhoods can kind of come in and enjoy it? Yeah, my understanding is that there will be parking. So if, like probably most likely, it'll be sort of at either end of the trail. So here, you know, this is Moore Street, and it's only a block long, and I think the idea is to sort of create some parking, you know, somewhere. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to plan it, but there will be parking created here, because that's another concern for the folks who live in the neighborhoods here. These are really tiny streets. Well, a lot of them have speed bumps now, which is good. But, you know, and a lot of these old houses don't have driveways. So people who live on these places a lot of them park on the street. And so they're like, well, what about parking? You know, what about all these other people coming in and parking? There's going to be nowhere for me to put my car. So parking will be created on both ends of the trail. This is a street called Smith Street here. Again, this is South Park, and that's, you know, if you're coming out of Buffalo and going into South Buffalo, you cross over that bridge and then you see the Tesla plant right there. There's a street before you cross the bridge. This is Smith Street. If you go down to the end of Smith Street, there's a little park right there called Red Jacket Park. It's a really sweet park, and it's an Erie County park. It's owned by managed by the county. But then all the land behind it and on this side of Smith Street is the NFTA's land. So we're gonna like more than double the green space on that end, and parking will be, there is a little bit of parking down there now, but more parking will be created on that end. Yep.
How will the street crossings be handled?
Yeah, wow, you guys have an excellent question. You could be civil engineer, you could be on the engineering team to figure it all out, but so how will the crossings on the streets be handled. The bridge, ideally, it would be by having bridges. So, you know, that you could be up on the berm, and then when you get to Hamburg Street, which is one of the streets, you know, there'd be a bridge, and you could just stay on that level and then hit the berm on the other side of Hamburg. Bridges, though, are the most expensive parts of the whole thing to build. And so some of it's going to depend on money. And what may happen is that on some of the busier streets that the trail crosses, so like, for instance, this is Louisiana Street here, and this is a fairly busy street. So it makes sense to have a bridge going over Louisiana. But the next street here is called Alabama Street, and that's not really a through street for folks. It doesn't get a lot of car traffic, so maybe they figure out a way to have people come down off the trail and then cross over Alabama and then go back up again. Hamburg Street would probably have a bridge. That's Hamburg Street here. You know, so it just is gonna have to, we're just gonna have to see exactly how that ends up, you know, working out.
Hi, I'm Dick Leonard. One thing, Don and Barbara Owens were mentioned here.
Yeah.
They're right here, sitting here.
Yes, yes.
So give them a hand.
Yes, give them a hand for sure. Yeah.
The other thing that I would like to discuss a little, I worked for the Corps of Engineers for quite a while, and I was mainly responsible for establishing the Times Beach nature area. Can you point it out there?
So Times Beach, well, wouldn't that be, so here's Lake Erie over here, and like, so Furman Boulevard would kind of come, and it's sort of right around there, wouldn't it be? Yeah.
But it was interesting, somebody here mentioned the security problem. When I was working at the Corps of Engineers, I went through that area and noticed that the Times Beach area had all kinds of crap in it, dumping, and I convinced the Corps of Engineers in the Buffalo District to put a fence up. The fence is still there. It's green fence, and that area was studied quite a bit by naturalists, bird people, and so forth. It's a beautiful area. Right now, though, I guess they had a lot of damage from high tides and so forth. But I'm glad it's part of the whole picture. And the whole thing is beautiful. I hope it gets enacted.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we're going to keep plugging away and telling more and more people about it, so that, you know, you can, you know, even, you know, if you wanted to get involved with some of our community stuff, and or, you know, go to your local, you know, elected person and say, I want this to happen. I want you to support this happening because it's good for Buffalo. It's good for Greater Buffalo, and even the communities outside of the city. There's a lot of good reasons to, and that, like you're saying, the more we're able to connect up green spaces, you just have a little chain. So, you know, there's Times Beach and the whole sort of lakefront improvements that are happening along, you know, including Canal Side and that. And we're kind of going in from that and creating more little green spaces for people, and that's a good thing.
The interesting thing was an international conference on the Times Beach many years ago. People from as far as Japan came over to see that because they're interested in doing the same thing in Japan.
Okay, that's terrific. Yeah, it is part of a movement. Yeah, go ahead.
Molly, I'm wondering if there's going to be multiple points of access to this trail, or do you have to start at the beginning and go to the end?
Right, great question. Will there be multiple points of access to the trail, or can you only get on it either over here or over here? The answer is yes, there will be multiple access points on the trail. Pretty much every street that it crosses, you'll be, so if there's a bridge over Louisiana, there will be a way to get up on there, on the side of the bridge. You know, if it's Alabama and there's no bridge, there'll be a path, you know, off of Alabama. And another main street that there's gonna be access, I don't know if you'll be able to see it here. This is called Catherine Street right here. This is where you're getting to the end of the old First Ward. This kind of gets into the nitty-gritty details a little bit, but right here, these are working railroad tracks. CSX railroad tracks go here. So one place where we're definitely gonna need a big bridge is to get over the working CSX tracks. But you know, that'll be another major access point coming down Catherine Street. Any other questions? Yes?
Yeah, I was wondering where on the map are the Perry projects
Yes.
that are going to be torn down, and that land, how's that being reused?
Yes.
As part of your program here?
Yes, that's a great question. The Commodore Perry homes, the Perry projects, it's happening. I don't know if.
Where on the map?
Yeah. So Perry homes are here. So here's South Park,
Okay.
and here's Louisiana Street here. So Perry homes occupies sort of this space right here. So here's Perry Street right here. And actually it even goes above Perry. Here's the 190. I don't know if you can sort of make that out. So it's between Perry homes are basically between South Park and the 190. It's sort of like this, it's always been this sort of isolated area for the folks who live in there. And you know, those low rises. So Perry has some high-rise buildings. The total number of units in Perry is almost like 800 units, but only half of them are occupied because the other half have been boarded up for 20 years and nothing was done. For a while they talked about building the stadium, the new Bills Stadium they were thinking about building it there. In the end, the powers that be decided no, we're gonna do it right next to the one here in Orchard Park. And so that really, I think when they decided not to build the stadium there, that gave the green light finally for the Perry homes to be totally redone. So if you happen to drive by South Park right here, you'll see that like 90% of those low-rise boarded up buildings are gone. I can't believe how fast they're moving on it. And there's already the new structures going up right along South Park. So it's going to be mixed use, and so there's still going to be I think it's about 500 units for people to live, mixed housing. But on the first floor, some of these structures are going to be more, you know, businesses, shops, restaurants, to try to make that more of a neighborhood where you can go and go shopping or go get something to eat. Because right now, you hear that term food desert. This is a total, actually this all is a total food desert. The closest Tops is in South Buffalo on South Park, like somewhere way over there. And so anyways, yeah, it's gonna make big improvements.
I have a question.
Yes.
So first of all, this is wonderful. If anyone's been to the High Line, it feels like you're not even in the city, you're somewhere else. And I think this really matches well with if anyone's been down there, there's a lot of life now. I mean, folks are moving down there, there's plenty of areas too. I think of the Shamrock Run and how busy it is down there. It's just a really neat area. My question is, I love the reuse of the rail, and I belong to the Rails to Trails, and I wonder if you're collaborating with them. And if anyone doesn't know what that is, there's not enough in this area. So my son goes to school in Pennsylvania, and I'll travel down there, and all I do is look for rail trails. And if you open up the app, it will show you a map of Pennsylvania, and they're everywhere. It's almost like every old rail line is now a trail. And then you look at New York State and there's not. There's just not many at all. So I love that this is being reused. Are you collaborating with them at all, with Rails to Trails? Is this part of it?
Yeah, so we collaborate with lots of different groups trying to bring these kinds of improvements. So, you know, the NFTA, you know, like I said, owns this railroad corridor, and they've done like the Tonawanda Rails to Trails project, and so, you know, they're definitely on board for, you know, this won't exactly be like a Rails to Trails. This is gonna be a little different, but it's still gonna be a place where people can go.
This will be a much higher and much better version.
Yeah, what do they call the Greater Buffalo, they have a big long acronym, the Transportation Council, GB, Greater Buffalo Regional Transportation Council is on board, the Erie Canal Harbor Development Group is on board, and the Niagara River Greenway, which there's a site, you know, you know, again, this is the Empire State Trail, but it's also part of the Niagara River Greenway. It keeps going, you know, all the way up to Niagara Falls, and we're in touch with the Niagara River Greenway Commission, and so these various groups, and Go Bike as well as, you know, a partner of ours. We have a big advisory committee with people from all these groups on our advisory committee. So yes, yeah.
One more final question from Ann Floyd. Mrs. Floyd?
Yes, I was concerned about the places that your line will go down to the street level. What does that do for the handicapped people to try to
go up and down, but yes. So the places on the trail that won't have the bridge over the road, and people are going to have to go down and cross the street and then go back up onto the berm. The path will accommodate. So there might be just a straight hill. The path might just go straight down the berm to, say, Alabama Street, and then there'll be a path going back up to the berm, like sort of a straight shot. But then there'll be an alternate path, and it could look like a switchback that will be wheelchair accessible, so that people will be able to come down the berm on the one side, cross the street, and then go back up the berm. So that will happen for sure. Keep it accessible. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you so much, Molly. I'm going to go party with you. And thank you so much for your presentation and for coming to visit us. And with that, everyone, have a good weekend. We'll see you